And finally, Houston, we have Durant. Copyright. Oh. How much pressure is on KD to win with the Rockets alongside Chris Broussard, who did wear shorts today? Kevin Wild.
Proudly.
Nick, you called the trade. Sorry, you called this trade. Great job by you.
I left out the second-round picks.
Who cares?
Aside from that, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and give Phoenix back one of its own picks is what I said to do. That's
27.
Exactly. I said the 27. Instead, they gave him the 2025.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Five second-round picks.
And 5 second-round picks, which they will use.
How about 4? Make it 5. Sure, 5.
Yeah, that's just more trade five.
Right.
Who
exactly.
wants that?
So
right. Exactly.
Something, but I think it's great for KD.
Yeah.
I think it's great for KD. I also think it should have been announced tomorrow.
Yes.
I don't think it should have been announced on the day of.
Love, though. Hey.
No, it overshadowed the finals a bit. Is my point. Like
Aaron Rodgers did that. We never hear the end of it.
Exactly right.
So thank you, Aaron, for not announcing it. But right now we're starting with the champions. Thunder rolled to a 14-point victory. SGA had 29, 12 assists, playoff high for him. Regular season MVP, finals MVP, first-time champion. Here he is after the game.
It means everything. It's why you play the sport. You play the sport to win. You play every sport to win. We have a team full of competitors. We did what it took this year to be champions, and we deserve this. We rose to the moment, and here we are.
Quick stat correction. Turns out it was a 12-point victory. Did someone step on a line or something? Must have been one of those stat corrections. What was your number one takeaway from the victory?
I hate to do it to you, Kevin Wilds. Defense wins championships.
That's mine. That's literally what I said. That's what I have written down. I had a whole take on it.
I know you made up that slogan.
Yes.
But that's my biggest takeaway.
This is my whole take.
I know the big three of Chet, SGA, Jalen combined for 67 points yesterday. But that defense that led them to 68 wins, that led them to the NBA Finals, is what got them the championship. And it was the key to the whole series.
Yep.
Yesterday, they forced, I was saying it every game, Indiana can't turn the ball over, and if you do, you can't let them score in transition. They forced 23 turnovers yesterday, OKC, and scored 32 points on those turnovers. That's the same exact thing they did in Game 5. Those were the two pivotal games in the series. They go up 3-2 in Game 5. They win yesterday. Same exact numbers, number of turnovers, number of points off turnovers. So that enabled them to withstand. SGA, look, he was great, 29 and 12, but he shot 8 for 27. That's 29%.
Correct.
The team, Indiana shot better from the field, better from three, better from the free throw line, and out-rebounded OKC without Haliburton. And still lost because of the turnover. So
that's right.
And I know we're going to get to the dynasty stuff, but I would just say this. If you look at most, not necessarily all, but most of the recent dynasties, the Jordan Bulls, the Steph, Warriors, the LeBron and Wade in Miami, those were based on defense. Obviously, you had great offensive players, but those were great defensive teams.
Every single year.
And so that's a good sign for this OKC team to maybe do something in the future. But that's what it was. It was the defense.
Do you want to build on that, KW?
Sorry.
Build on it. It's my idea. I got stolen, right? No, I had some graphics. OKC's ranks this season, defensive ranks. In the regular season, they had the best defensive rating. In the playoffs, they had the best defensive rating. Opponents' field goals first, second in the playoffs. Steals, which you talked about a little bit, Brew, first in first. So I always have a backup take.
Yeah.
The other biggest takeaway from last night or OKC's season was they were good all year long. And for how much drama this playoffs had, guess who ended up winning? The team we thought was going to win in October. So I was surprised that they've had this level of consistency, a little bit of health luck, but they've been good this whole time, defensively, offensively. They've just done it all year.
Despite that, they didn't skate through the playoffs, right?
No,
you know what I mean?
they
Faced elimination twice in these playoffs. It was weird. They had kind of 2 easy rounds, and every other. It was easy, very difficult, easy, very difficult. And this series ended up following the exact same pattern of the Denver series as far as wins and losses, flow and the Game 7 ultimately being
Even
a blowout.
an injury being a factor.
Right, and an injury being a factor, obviously, in different ways. But we all had kind of cousins of the same take because it's the right take. They won the exact way they were supposed to, torturing the other team defensively. And the way OKC, the reason they won 68 games was not because, even though Shea was great not every game, but basically he was wildly consistent. The difference for them in the regular season was this. If we're having a good offensive game, we will blow you out.
Yep.
And if we're having a mediocre offensive game, we'll beat you by 6 to 10 because the defense was always there. And Bru's point about the stats being all equal or favoring Indiana, I can show it to you because look, as for field goal percentage, essentially equal. Three-pointers made, equal. Free throws made, equal. Offensive rebounds, essentially equal. So how do you win? You take 17 more shots.
There it is.
It's the field goal attempts.
Yeah.
They got 17 more shots than Indiana. And that's because of the line above it. Indiana had 15 more giveaway possessions than OKC did. That was the game. And as I was saying, I forget which series we first started talking about this, but where I said they are the first team for me since the 90s Bulls that with consistency can go on these 12-2 or 18-3 runs that are based purely on defense.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly what they did from the end of the third quarter. Let me just show it real quick, Brew. Into the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, it was a 4-point game. Even with Haliburton out, with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, it was a 4-point game. And then OKC didn't get, I mean, they hit 3 threes, but that's not an insane number. It was they had 4 stocks. The Pacers had 4 turnovers. They locked them down defensively. Poor TJ McConnell looked like he was in hell in a cell. And the game's over. I know that the Pacers valiantly cut it to 10 later, but that turned it from 4 to 21. And that was not because Shea got red hot.
Yep.
That was not because all of a sudden, anything, Case and Wallace. No, none of them were. It was because of their defense, and it was their identity all year.
I'm glad you brought up McConnell, who was great. Like, even yesterday, 16 points.
Yeah, just the turnovers.
Yeah, well, that's what the difference was. Like, he had a great series, but yesterday, even though he was scoring, and he kept scoring, you saw the difference between being an 18 to 23 minute a night guy, a lot of that against the reserves, versus being a 30-minute guy that they got to count on against starters a lot. Like, that showed you why. I don't know if some people were looking at like, oh, McConnell should start somewhere. He is a fantastic backup point guard. And he showed it in this series, but yesterday you saw the difference between facing the frontline defenders versus the reserves.
Can I show you some other things? So we talked about point differential, that they were blasting teams all year. And it felt like we took it a little bit with a grain of salt because we were like, well, the three-point era. Now that they've officially, cemented the championship, does this resonate any more for you?
I think adjusted for inflation, yeah. I don't think that they just had the 4th most dominant season in NBA history. You know what I mean? But I do think that it is.
A lot of it says that they had 2 40-point wins in the playoff. They have massive wins.
Well, then they won.
Too.
Yeah. They had the most 10-point wins, I think.
So I think that OKC has the ability, because of the defense and because they can get hot from 3 and they do have Shea, to blow anyone out. And because of the defense, they are almost unblowoutable.
But they got blown out several times.
They got blown
Denver
out.
Or Minnesota blew them out by 42.
No. So
I honestly thought that was like that sounds right, an emotional blowout rather than a strategic blowout.
That's
fine,
fair.
But I'm just saying they were blown. I doubt any of those teams on that graphic. And I don't know off the top of my head, were blown out like that.
Well, actually, the $71.
The other thing I would say is this. I do think that when we are talking about all-time great and all-time greatest, that facing elimination twice puts a ding in that. Like, I'm a big, I would love to be able to, when we talk about the greatest teams of all time, throw in the 2013 Heat because of the 27-game winning streak. I thought that was one of the most underrated, crazy things that's happened in modern NBA history. But the fact that in the finals they were down 3-2 and on the brink of, you know what I mean, losing, and then that kind of takes the wind out of the sails from that one. And so when I think of the most dominant juggernaut teams, they are not backs against the wall at any point in the postseason. And so I think that, to me, that's the relevant.
They're kind of
well, particularly against an Indiana team that, you know, wasn't like, they didn't have a superstar, you know, wasn't, I know they got club superstar, but you know what I mean? Like
going into the playoffs, didn't have a superstar.
And then Denver with the injuries. It was a great, I mean, statistically and on paper, to be one of the greatest seasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you can have one of the greatest seasons and not be one of the greatest teams ever. I can have a great show, all-time great show, but not necessarily be the greatest.
Well, I think, how about this?
So I'm just saying. Like, you know.
I think that just across sports for a moment, had the Chiefs not gotten blown out by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, had they won it, that would have been, by any metric, one of the greatest seasons of all time. And I think most people, maybe not me, but most Chiefs fans would be like, that wasn't even the best Chiefs team of the last 5 years. You know what I mean? And so, like, I do think that's a thing that can exist.
Yeah. All right, on the other side, Haliburton looked to be on pace for a stellar Game 7, had 9 early points, but went down in the first quarter, was what we think is an Achilles tear. He greeted his teammates post-game in the tunnel. He later left on crutches. Here's T.J. McConnell after the game.
It was a tough feeling to see your franchise guy go down like that. I don't even remember the score going into halftime, but we were up 1. So, you know, I thought we did a good job of kind of compartmentalizing it. Obviously, we missed him, but you know, we all are devastated for him, and you know, obviously support him.
So what happened in that game is why Brew always makes sure to say on the front end of stuff when we're talking about things like after Game 6, we're not doctors. Because I was on here on Friday after Game 6, like, man, he played too well for that. Like, I said flatly, I was like, it's not a Kevin Durant situation. Right. And it turns out, tragically,
Interestingly on that, quickly, when you saw Durant, and I didn't remember this until we saw the highlights, Durant walked off after his Achilles tear. Yeah. Whereas surprised. Obviously Haliburton, so it was even a different level there.
But regardless, like I talked to some active players, actually texted and talked to during the game right after it happened. Because I was trying to ask the question, like, how, if it was that close to tearing, how could he look so fluid and good in Game 6? And the answer that I got was, it's not like a hamstring or some of these other injuries where having the calf strain always severely limits your mobility. Sometimes you do, not that you feel fine, but you can move so different. It's just that the only way to heal it is totally get off it for a few weeks. And if you don't, you're just rolling the dice like this. And that's what he did. And so on the front end, I mean, I felt bad about my opinions, which were like, actually, wasn't knocking him, but I was like, man, he played great. How could he have been quite as injured?